One of the most fascinating teams for me heading into this 2019 season was the Pittsburgh Steelers. They were going to look dramatically different as a team. Notable big name stars that you associated and identified this team with were no longer in the fold. You had all the drama of 2018 and what happened with Le'Veon Bell and his contract situation and sitting out the year, and ultimately he ends up leaving in free agency and goes and gets his money from the New York Jets. Good job. You got the Antonio Brown stuff, and at the end of the season not being there the last week, and the drama between him and Big Ben, and the Steelers decide to pawn him off on the Oakland Raiders. Good move. Yeah. Trading him away. So all of a sudden you got the killer bees are no more. Big Ben clearly won the day. No more Le'Veon Bell. No more Antonio Brown. It's clearly Big Ben's team heading into the 2019 season. The distractions are gone. The personalities are gone. The drama's gone. And you wonder, is this going to significantly hinder this team because they lost talent like that? Or could this potentially be a situation of addition by subtraction? Well, unfortunately for the Steelers, it's kind of hard to tell based off of 2019, although I think you can look a little closer and see that it was some addition by subtraction. The biggest problem of all, of course, is that in the second game of the year, Big Ben went down with an elbow injury and ultimately ended up missing the rest of the season. And when you got to go from a future Hall of Famer like Rapey McRoethlisberger to a quarterback tandem of Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges, you got an idea of how the rest of your season's going to go. But it was Mason Rudolph that was going to replace Big Ben. Then, fascinatingly to me, the Steelers get active in the trade market, but not to go get a quarterback that can actually play, unlike Mason Rudolph. They go out there and trade a 2020 first-round pick to the Miami Dolphins for Minkah Fitzpatrick. Now, if Big Ben was starting and this team was pushing towards the playoffs, I would be all in on that. I'd say that's a fantastic move. This team can't draft the secondary players to save their damn lives. Other positions, they do well. Linebackers, they do really well. Wide receivers, they're outstanding. Their recent track record, you can put up against darn near anybody, especially the Steelers you're talking about here with wide receivers. But, man, when it comes to corners and safeties, they miss and they miss and they miss. So it makes sense. You can't draft them. You might as well have to figure out a different way to acquire them. But what's so puzzling to me is that they make this trade, but they know Big Ben is gone for the year. Did they really think that delusionally that Mason Rudolph was going to be the guy? I don't know what the hell it was. So they ultimately got off to an 0-3 start. They were 2-4 at the bye. And then they started to kind of turn it around a little bit. Won 3 out of their next 4, got to 500 with 6 weeks left in the season. Then they won their next 3 games, and all of a sudden you're looking at the Steelers, man, and you're saying, this is an 8-5 football team with crap at quarterback. With Juju having a bad year, no more Le'Veon Bell, no more Antonio Brown, no Big Ben Roethlisberger. And somehow, some way, they're finding a way to get it done, and they're winning games. It's ugly, but it's ironic. All these years of really talented teams falling way too short, way too often in the playoffs under Mike Tomlin. Now, here in 2019, you're riding with Rudolph and the Duck. And you're 8-5 with 3 games to go in the season. And it's arguably Mike Tomlin's best coaching job. None of it makes any sense, I know. But unfortunately, I think the reality caught up to him that it just wasn't their year ultimately. They lost their last 3 games of the season and finished 8-8 and out of the playoffs. So you look back at the season, Juju only had 552 receiving yards. James Conner had less than 500 yards rushing. And the Steelers defense, I'll give them credit. Tomlin and that defense did their best. TJ Watt and Bud Dupree. Bud Dupree, of all damn people, had a really good year. They combined for 26 sacks. And I think it is, beyond question, Mike Tomlin's best pure coaching job. Like so many of these other seasons where he was a disappointment, his teams were disappointments, and they underwhelmed and they underachieved. It didn't maximize their full potential. Now, this is a team that overachieved to its full potential, and it's crazy. You look at the draft, they made the big move up the board to get Devin Bush. He led the team in tackles. You got third-round pick Deontay Johnson, the wide receiver. He had a really nice rookie year, considering the crap that was throwing the ball to him at quarterback. 59 catches, 680 yards, 5 touchdowns. Benny Snell out of Kentucky was a mid-round pick. He averaged almost 4 yards a carry. So they still got a couple of contributors out of that draft class. So you look at it and you say, man, you bring Big Ben back into the fold. Juju probably has a better year. The offense has a better year. And if that defense could play close to 2019 levels, then this team could be dangerous again. And that certainly is the case. Problem for them is, they got to figure out if and how they're going to be able to re-sign Bud Dupree and or Javon Hargrave, especially since they only have about $1.5 million in cap space right now. Are you going to cut Mark Barron and get about $5.3 million in cap relief? Are you going to cut Marquise Pouncey and get $5 million in cap relief to help make some of these deals happen? Or do you let some of those guys go? I look at this deal too, and I say for the Steelers, it's interesting because it's hard on the one hand to knock them for getting a Minkah Fitzpatrick. It's hard to knock them because you can say, you know what? Okay. You gave up an 18th overall pick to get a guy that the year before, 2 years before, or whatever, was the 11th overall pick. And he came and he played incredibly well, and he was a face changer for that defense. And that certainly was true, but it also speaks to, well, if you wouldn't have massively reached on Terrell Edmonds, you wouldn't have had to potentially trade for Minkah like this. And I think both things can be true. Is that Minkah was really good for the Steelers in 2019. And it's still questionable of whether or not they should have given up a first-round pick for him, knowing dang good and well that the quality of quarterback on their roster after Big Ben was non-existent. Like, how far did you really think you were going to go? Maybe that deal makes more sense in the grand scheme of 2020, maybe. But even if Big Ben comes back, does he get hurt again? Is it his last season? If things go rough early, is he just going to kind of mentally check out a little bit and kind of throw in the towel? I don't really know. So it's hard to know fully whether you can just 100% get on board with the Minkah deal. Like I said, he played really, really well. He played outstanding. He deserves credit. I'm happy for the young man. He said, I don't want to be in Miami where they use me all over the place. Let me get it somewhere else where I can play one position where they know what they're doing and I'll be able to get the job done. And he most certainly did. And you would say for a guy like him and the level that he played at in 2019, for a guy that's still only year 2 in his career, got a couple more seasons left on his rookie deal, it's really, really hard to say that you would want to pass up on the opportunity to trade for a guy like that. But you also still lack the long-term answer at the quarterback position behind Big Ben. Because even if you assume Big Ben comes back in 2020, how much longer do you really expect him to play? 2020 could be the swan song. Or even if it's maybe one other year. No matter what, the clock is ticking on Big Ben in Pittsburgh, and you have nothing behind him that you have any faith or confidence in. Absolutely none. Which is why the number one need for this team in the offseason, even though they don't have a first-round pick, unfortunately for them, is they need to find a young quarterback, a legit young quarterback that actually has potential enough to be a franchise guy someday. Or at least a good starter. Hodges, Rudolph don't have that ability. Now, I don't know that that's going to fit into the Steelers' plans, but it needs to. It should. Absolute worst case scenario with one of those 2 fourth-round picks that they have, maybe considering it with the second-round pick that they have, depending on how the board plays out. But they have other needs on their team. I look at tight end and I say, they could definitely use a weapon there. I look at the defense and I say a corner. I dread to mention it because the Steelers don't know how to draft that position. Artie Burns, a former first-round pick, another notable bust for them out of many that they've had. But, you would hope eventually you might be able to figure it out. You might be able to get it right. And then I would say maybe looking at this draft and looking at fortifying the trenches up front on offense and defense. The Steelers could go into 2020 with Big Ben back, getting better years out of guys like Juju and James Conner, in part because Big Ben is back, and say if you keep most of the key cogs of your defense around, which is going to require a little work based off a little to limited salary cap space the Steelers have, is that the Steelers team could be one to watch in 2020. They could be. There were interesting team this year, though, for different reasons that I ended up anticipating. Mike Tomlin actually showed this year that he could coach. That's crazy.